Hey, and welcome to Good Morning Enablement. I have here Maria and Roger. We're going to talk real talk. Has anyone been in a meeting and had a solid point to make, but just never found the right moment to jump in? I'll ask Maria from Enablement Dojo and Roger from Adventures in Video to discuss this topic with me. So we'll start with Roger. Let's talk about preparing in advance for a meeting. Are there any tips that you can think of that can help you prepare for any meeting in general?
Absolutely. If I'm going into a meeting, an important meeting to me, I always will sit down and I'll make a list of bullet points of the topics I want to cover. Because one of the personal issues I have is I'll maybe get distracted and go down a rabbit hole and then forget something really important. So for me, I'll list out all the things I want to cover. I may not get to them all, but at least they're right in front of me. And if the opportunity arises, I can bring them up.
Excellent, Roger. I have a question for you, Maria, and it's about active listening. How do you use active listening to help others speak? Give them a moment to give their ideas to the meeting, and just other tips on active listening and keeping the flow of the meeting.
Yes, that's a really, really good call out there, and I'm happy to share. So getting your voice heard in meetings for some people is very difficult. So I sometimes act as an ally to all of the people in the meeting by active listening, as you so rightly called out. So I will sit there and take notes. And if somebody is talking and then someone raised their hand and no one addressed it, whether it's in Zoom or whether it's in person, if they go to move the conversation on in the meeting, I will be the interrupter. So, I'm sorry if you've ever experienced me, but I will get my voice heard to help others. So I will sort of interject with my voice, interject with my hand, and I will be very determined about it. I'll say, excuse me, and I'll keep getting there until somebody acknowledges that I'm speaking. And sometimes using the hand in Zoom is not enough. So I will vocalize and I will say, so if we us three were together, Matt wanted to raise a point and Roger perhaps was the orator in the meeting, I would say, Roger, make sure Roger and I had eye contact on Zoom or in person. I'd say, Roger, I believe that Matt had a question or a point that he was about to make. And then the person is automatically going to go, oh, yeah, sorry. Or say, yes, Matt, please, what is it you would like to contribute? So I use active listening to prepare, write notes for myself of whatever action I have, but I will also take a note if someone raised a point and they weren't heard. And if it's not appropriate immediately, I will go back in there and get heard for the person, not for me, but for the person.
Yeah, one
Excellent.
thing I want to add before Matt asks is if you're a manager or a team lead and you're aware that some of your team don't always get heard, if they speak up, make sure that you give them positive reinforcement and thank them for that. Don't be like what my daughter experiences in school, where the teacher calls on the quiet person and only shuts them down even more. I'm
Oh my
proud to
goodness.
say my daughter is now coaching and helping other people. That wasn't about her, but she talks about it. It's like, why does the teacher pick on me? You don't want to be picking on somebody in the corporate meeting.
That's a good
That's a
point.
great point, Roger. I'm a natural introvert, so I don't normally speak up in meetings. So meetings, it takes a little bit for me to challenge myself in order to contribute. I like to do it early and often. If I start a meeting these days and enter it, I try to speak up even just to greet people, just to get used to talking. And also, I'm getting used to the tools where I raise my hand if I have a point to make while someone else is talking, or I use the tools in Zoom, which is the little emoji hand to raise that to lets the host know that I have something to say. So there's a polite way to do it. You can also interject with pauses. But Roger, when you're talking about contributing, when you have a point to deliver, do you have any strategy about how long to make your point, how short to make your point? How do you
Okay.
jump in and make your a point?
Well, my point might end up being long because I do get excited and ramble a little bit. But when I have that list in front of me of the things that are really important, or if I'm doing a show and tell, if I'm presenting to my manager, that helps it be a little bit more concise. I don't want to go present to my manager, without visuals, since most of the content I'm creating is visual, or without my list of topics to talk about. So just trying to stay focused. For me, being focused is how I
Yeah.
can be, because I'm starting to ramble right now.
No, you don't. If I may, Matt, I like the fact that Roger said he had a list. And the reason I'm saying that is because what I've noticed is sometimes people don't ask their point or ask their question because they believe that the moment has passed. And what I mean by that is they've got their hand up, no one's coming back to them, no one's responding to them or acknowledging them. So that can be a little bit deflating. And so, the advice I would give to anyone, if it's not an appropriate time, you don't feel comfortable interjecting immediately when you want to ask the question. When there is a moment to ask the question, address the person who is speaking, who you want to ask the question of. And a good technique is to say, let's pretend it's you, Matt. And I would say, oh, hi, Matt, listen, I want to circle back to a point that you made earlier. You said, and then, paraphrase what they said, and then ask your question on top of it. And what you're doing is still getting what you need, which is clarification or information from the point or the question you were going to ask, but also you're encouraging the person who was speaking to recall why they said what they said by making them, dig back into it for your question. So, Matt, I just wanted to raise that as a bit of advice, because sometimes people just shut down. Like you mentioned about your daughter, almost mentioned her name then. You mentioned about your daughter, and I think that's that it's important to know that you can go back even if the time has passed. It's okay to do that.
Excellent points all around. I think something that popped in my head was being from an introvert, personality type to engage in a large meeting. Sometimes it's even more daunting rather than a small meeting with just the two of you. Use the tools. If you're a little more timid to speak, use the chat window. It's also best to speak and use your voice. But if there are, let's say, 50 people and the chat window is active and people and the hosts are noticing that chat window and the conversations that are going on in that, you could use that. But, best case is to use your voice and raise your hand and be seen and heard. Speaking of being seen, Maria, a question for you about body language and just voice in general. Do you have any tips on how to present yourself in front of a camera or how to be heard and speak clearly?
Yeah, absolutely. So, a lot of the things that happen, whether you're in person or in a virtual room, is called nonverbal cues. So when I'm talking to you now, if I'm leaning in and I'm really focused on the camera lens and you can see me focused on the camera lens, what signals I'm sending to you with my body language, not with my words, is that I'm interested, I'm invested, and I'm leaning in. If I'm smiling, my eyes are smiling, you're going to take from that excitement and enthusiasm. So I want people to understand that if you're in a virtual world, there is still 70% of, nonverbal communication. One of them is turning your camera off. That tells people you're not interested. Unless you say, I'm just going to turn you put it in chat. Excuse me, I need to turn my camera off. Someone's at the door. I apologize, or restroom, whatever. Be honest, be authentic. But turning your camera off if it's an important meeting and you need to ask questions, the person's not going to connect with you in the same way, because now they're not looking at you. They're looking at a picture of you or a name. So the other thing is about pitch, pace, and intonation of your voice and the words that you use. So 70% of, thank you, 70% is nonverbal communication, but the other 30% is the tone, pitch, pace, tone, and also the words that you use. So if you have a question, rather than blurt it out immediately, as soon as a space appears, think about why you're asking the question, and you might change the question to be more specific. And remember, there's open-ended questions and closed questions. So if I was to say to you, Matt, is the project starting in April? And you go, yes. Okay, all I've got is now I've confirmed it's in April. Maybe I wanted to know, really, when does it start and when does it end? But I didn't ask that. I asked you a closed question. Does it start in April? Yes. I should have made it more open and said, Matt, can you share with me the timeline for the project? Now I've opened a doorway for you to you'll give me loads of information now. So, and then, keep your voice engaging. Even if you are introvert and shy, just be concise, even if you shorten your sentence. But yeah, 70% is what you're showing here. Camera off is not showing engagement, unfortunately, especially in our virtual world now. And, use your natural, authentic voice, and don't be, especially when it's in the video, don't be shy. You're in the video world. No one can see if your leg's shaking under the table, or they probably can't hear your tone of voice if you're a little scared or dried mouth. It's a very different experience than when you're in person. And I'm just going to close it there. Thank you for asking, Matt. But one of the things which I'll share in a totally different video, Engage in the C-Suite, is how people show up in front of the C-Suite and why they get scared. But I'll talk about that in another video. Thank you for asking the question, Matt.
Excellent. That was a wonderful answer. Great insight, Maria. Thank you. I think we have really explored this subject. We're going to keep this video a little bit briefer than we would. We can go into this for many more minutes, but we want to keep your time very important to us that you tune back in for some further videos. Any last comments? Roger, I'll start with you about being heard in a meeting. Any couple sentences?
Just this is the golden tip that I should have led with. If you are the introvert, this isn't a new thing, but I've seen people do it, and no one's doing this. This is not part of your culture. Offer to open a Google Doc and take notes. And what that allows is people who don't want to speak up, they can type in their question.
Bravo.
They can still be heard. That's my big tip.
I love that. I'm just going to concur with Roger and say great tip.
Plus, if you can't remember things, there's the log.
Final words on being heard in meetings, Maria?
No, I was just concurring with Roger. I mean, I am going to tell our audience, our subscribers, thank you for subscribing. And if you like and subscribe and put comments, we'll respond to you, and we'll bring more of these casual Fridays where it's just our thoughts about things that can help you in the workplace.
Beautiful.
Absolutely. Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Roger. Thank you, all the viewers. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Mm-hmm. Bye.